All right, everyone. Hello. How are you doing? Welcome to my channel. I'm Thomas, and I do videos on educational matters. Right now, we're beginning our survey of the reciprocal system of theory of Dewey B. Larson, and also the reciprocal system 2, developed by Bruce Perret, KVK Nehru, and others. And we were talking about Larson's biography last time, and we kind of had stopped off about the time that Larson was writing his first books. He kind of turned the corner, came up with his epiphanies around 1930, but it took him many, many, many years to work it out. What he called the inductive phase. So he had his inductive phase that went on for about 20 years until about 1950. And then he kind of turned the corner when he arrived at the concept of the universe of motion. When he recognized that time and space had a reciprocal relationship in motion, and that the universe was made out of motion, as opposed to matter or energy, as some of the earlier paradigms had claimed. And said the inductive, so this was the inductive phase, and then since then he's been working on the deductive phase. And he said the inductive phase was the hard work. The deductive phase, it's just you got your postulates and you work down toward the consequences. And with the reciprocal system, that is some of the it's a system. So you have these postulates. You start out with the postulates, and you basically say, well, if this, then that, then this, then that, and you get these entities that come out of the system, and they don't come out with labels. So you have to figure out what this is, what this thing is that has these theoretical qualities to it. Does it have a counterpart in legacy science? So, when something comes out of the system, you're like, what is this thing? Well, it's a new thing that has never been discovered before, but chances are it's probably something that has already been, discovered and worked through by legacy science already. But what is it? What label does it have? Is this, and this is a photon, or this is an atom, this is an electron. This is a white dwarf star, or whatever it is. You put the machinery of the original postulates of the system into your kind of theoretical, machinery, however you turn over your system of logic, and you get these things that pop out, and you have to be able to kind of label them, figure out what is the correspondence with the legacy system. But you have an advantage because the legacy system has these things in it, but it doesn't really have a conceptual view of all of them. It doesn't really know how one's related to the other, or what they are in concept. So, for example, like the electron, they think that the legacy science thinks that the electron is revolving around the nucleus of all the atoms, and that there's a certain amount of them, and that they can be shared with other atoms, and that's how you bond. And but Larson is dealing with just time and space. The where the in legacy science, time and space is the setting of the universe. The universe is in space and it's moving through time. But in Larson's system, the space and time are the contents of the universe. Everything is made out of space or time and/or time. And so with the electron, he eventually came up with the idea that the electron is nothing more than a rotating unit of space. And then when that rotating unit of space is moving through time, time is matter. Matter is made out of time. So the electric current is the electron, the rotating unit of space moving through time, which is just the reciprocal of an atom of time moving through space. So anyway, we'll get into that a lot more. It changes the whole game because for Larson, the electron is an uncharged particle that can take a charge. You can have a charged electron, but you also have an uncharged electron, which I think that legacy science would say that that is like a positive charge. But Larson's saying that it's uncharged. So anyway, the main thing that he was working on that caused his breakthrough was his interatomic distance. So he was trying to measure how far apart, the nuclei or the atoms, because Larson eventually came up with the idea that there is no nucleus. An atom does not have a nucleus. That was the name of his first book, The Case Against the Nuclear Atom. And that book doesn't necessarily present his new reciprocal system of universe of motion, but he really more looked at it kind of historically, that there was a case against the nuclear atom that had developed historically from other scientists. But the interatomic distance was basically the distance between atoms that were packed together, like the same atom. So if you have a lattice of a bunch of different carbon atoms, how far apart are they? They always pack in a closest packing. How far apart are they? And so you have carbon atoms packed together, and then you have nitrogen atoms packed together, and you have oxygen atoms packed together. They all have different distances from each other when they are packed together. And what mathematical expression are you going to use to accurately describe that distance? So he was working for a very long time trying to figure this out. What is the expression for the interatomic distance? So what he would be doing is he'd be looking at the scientific tables, of the interatomic distance. Okay, for this atom it's 3 angstroms, and for this atom it's 4 angstroms. For this atom it's 3.5 angstroms. Now, what is it about these atoms that makes that difference? Okay, so eventually he came to the idea that this expression that I had found for the interatomic distance was the integral, meaning the the integral of calculus of a reciprocal relation. So once he figured out this reciprocal relation between space and time, he said this would open the door to the solution of at least half a dozen problems of long standing in the physical sciences. It was like rolling up a curtain and you got a bunch of answers right in front of you. The speed of light. If it's a reciprocal relation, the light has to go at unit speed, the speed of light. And that's a feature of Larson's system where, if you go to Einstein, Einstein is really saying that the speed of light is the maximum speed of the universe. Nothing can go beyond the speed of light. Larson, on the contrary, says that the speed of light is actually the midpoint of the universe. And so half the universe is moving faster than the speed of light, and half of it is moving slower than the speed of light. We are accustomed to being in that universe that's moving slower than the speed of light. That would be what he calls the material sector. But then there is another half of the universe, which he would call the cosmic sector, where everything is moving faster than the speed of light. And a lot of that has to do with like mental phenomena. And then he eventually he gets the life unit out of a combination of those two things, a combination at the right proportions between a material atom or material entity and a cosmic entity. So Larson, through that whole thing, opens up a whole nother can of worms for the study of mental phenomena as being part of the cosmic universe. But the thing is that the cosmic universe and the material universe are identical, except that they have space and time reversed. And therefore, whatever it is that's in the material universe is also in the cosmic universe. So you can figure out, even though we don't have any type of direct access to the cosmic universe, we can figure out what's in it just because we know what's in the material universe. Anyway, so he goes back. It was like rolling up a curtain. You got a bunch of answers right there. The speed of light has to go at unit speed. And then you have also the space-time progression, which, I'm thinking like the expanding universe, so-called, that all the Hubble constant, everything is moving away from each other. The further away they are, the faster they're moving away from each other. So that's the explanation of the recession of the galaxies. That's actually the progression of time. Or, I'm sorry, the progression of space. The progression of time we know from in the material sector, time is always getting later and later and later and later. Well, there is also a progression of space. Things are getting further and further and further apart in space. Okay, because of the reciprocal relation, everything that is a quality of space is also a quality of time, and vice versa. So what we know about space is that it's three-dimensional or multi-dimensional. And so time is also three-dimensional, or, with some of the more modern geometries, you might say more than three or whatever. But and then what we know about time is that it's progressing. It's always getting later and later and later. Well, that also exists in space, meaning that the space-time the recession of the galaxies, everything is getting further and further and further apart. And this is a scalar these are scalar motion. Time progresses in a scalar manner. It doesn't progress in a specific direction, or it progresses in all directions, but it's always getting later and later and later. It's a magnitude, but it has no direction. That's a definition of scalar motion. And scalar motion is the kind of motion that Larson is referring to when he's talking about his universe of motion. Now, can be vectorial motions, which are motions in a specific direction, but that is something that is a subset of the scalar motion. So within one dimension of a scalar motion, there are three dimensions of vectorial motions. And there are three dimensions of scalar motions. So there are, three different sets of kind of XYZ coordinates within the whole system. Okay, so then he says his postulates followed almost immediately after getting the idea of the reciprocal relation. And so then he was really able to make strides and start writing. And so he started putting together this structure of the physical universe. And, I've looked at it came out in, I think, 1959. It's a detective story just to look at it. Again, he put it together for his own purposes to keep track of where he was going. So there's all kinds of him writing in his own handwriting in the margins, and there's some chapters that are missing, some chapters that are incomplete, and some stuff that where he's got the whole page crossed out, and so it's difficult to get into that structure of the physical universe. He eventually rewrote the whole thing in the 80s with his structure of the physical universe, divided it into three books, which are three of the books that we'll be going over closely here pretty soon. The first one, Nothing But Motion. Second one, Basic Properties of Matter, which is on chemistry, and the third one is The Universe of Motion on astronomy. So those were kind of revisions after 30 more years of that original structure of the physical universe that came out in 1959. But he started publishing things. That's the main idea, and he published them himself, and he sent them out all over the place. It sounds like he pretty much sent copies everywhere, to every university, every professor, everyone that he could think of, to send them out, and as well as articles to journals and so on. And he said, sometimes it seemed to me that I got it back before I sent it out. I got my rejection letters back before I even sent them out. He said the attention I got was mostly from the students. I had quite a bit of correspondence with students. And initially, most of the lectures I gave were sponsored by some group of students at one university or another, usually over the opposition of the faculty. Okay, so, again, you've got this entrenched paradigm of these people who have invested their lives and their reputations, their careers on this certain paradigm, and here comes this guy coming out of nowhere with this different paradigm. They're not willing to even look at it. Okay, their orientation is to be opposed to it before they even see what it is. And I've heard it from scientist friends of mine. I don't have time to look at every, what's the word, jack of all trades, or every, a guy in his basement doing research. I just don't have time to look at all that. And they don't, because they're kept busy, with their little pigeonhole of territory that they have. So they don't have time to look at new theories that come in. But the students were very interested, and eventually he found a couple of professors that liked some of his work at the Queen Mary College in England, electrical engineers, and so he got a little bit of a foothold there, um, and had a little bit of correspondence going with those people there. But really, like I said, I've been studying Larson since just after I got my PhD, um, and for that was 20 years ago. I've never ever met another person who's ever heard of him before. That doesn't mean that there aren't those people. I've just never met one. Because there definitely are some people who understand Larson. I'm not the only person that understands. I don't even claim to understand Larson. I think my comprehension of Larson's theory is 60 to 80%. There's maybe a few people who are living that understand it better than me. Um, but I feel like even if you understand it 5%, it can make a big difference because it just presents a new paradigm. Just the whole concept of the universe of motion and now this is more of a globe Earth kind of thing, but you can just recognize that when you get down to a complete stillness in your life, that stillness is a motion. Okay, so that's kind of where I leave it right now. We will continue on next time.